Hey, happy Friday, everyone. What's hot with the circuit today? Well, we have a pretty serious topic to talk about today. I'm excited to bring on my guests to share our conversation. But I'm also saddened that we have to have this conversation. But such is life. So we want to invite you all in. If you're watching, uh, if you know someone else that may want to hear this conversation, please share to your Facebook page, share the link with other people. We want to hear your conversation. We want to hear what you're thinking. So, welcome to the Circuit Presents Virtual Conversations. We are super excited um, to share with you this Friday. So, happy Friday. And we hope that you've had a super dope week. All right. So, what's hot with the circuit today? I want to tell you that the circuit is designed to educate, empower, and enhance your life. And today, like I said, we have a bit of a sensitive topic, but it's definitely something that we need to have a conversation about. So, if you were with us last week, we talked to Timothy Fryer, a coach and pastor and HR director. And we had a really, really good conversation about thinking and um, how to process your time so that you're giving the best to what it is that you're purposed to do. And so I hope that you guys have been practicing those tools. He gave us a couple of books. If you missed it, go back to thecircuitlive.com on Facebook and view the video. It's also on Instagram at Candy Kyler. You can take a look at that, write those books down, and go out there and read something good that's going to enhance your life. Um, hey, Dad. Hey, Nana. Thanks for tuning in and joining us today. Today is going to be great. I want to share the circuit tip with you. And typically, what we're doing is shouting out another page, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, but today is TikTok. And so we want to follow this young man, but we also want to share this awesome message that he has. So stay tuned.
Put your hoodie on. Don't be outside with no shirt on. Check in with your people. It don't matter even if you're down the street. Don't be out too late. Don't touch anything you're not buying. Never leave the store without a receipt or a bag, even if it's just a pack of gum. Never make it look like there's an altercation between you and someone else. Never leave the house without your ID. Don't drive with a wife beat on. Don't drive with a do-rag on. Don't go out in public with neither. Don't ride with the music too loud. Don't stare at a Caucasian woman. If a cop stop you randomly and start questioning you, don't talk back. Just compromise. If you ever get pulled over, hands on the dashboard, and ask, could you get out your license and registration? Don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't put your hoodie on. Don't be outside with no shirt on.
What an awesome video. And I'm so thankful that young man took the opportunity to share. And every time I watch it, and I've watched it about 5 times so far, and every time I watch it, I get a little emotional because I grew up in the South, in Alabama. And I do remember my mother saying, never walk out the store without a bag. Make sure you have your receipt. Don't take things in one store that you bought in another store because people will assume that you have stolen it. Um, we've had the police talk. We've had, um, even as a woman, and my parents didn't have boys except for their adopted sons that call them mom and dad, but it's still an issue. So, I'm not a mother, but I am a godmother. I am an aunt. I am a play auntie. I am a mentor, and I care deeply about our young people, whatever race, whatever color. I care that they succeed in this world. And so it is imperative that we have this conversation because I want to know, I know how I feel. I want to know how my friends feel that have sons, and I have lots of friends that have boys, and some of them don't care to talk live, and they share with their feelings, and some of them are so emotional that they can't share, and I totally get it. But if you're here and you have an opinion and you want to share, please drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. This is a virtual conversation for all of us today, so please join in. But what I want to do is introduce my guests today. They're dear friends of mine. And first, I have Kimberly Hall. Hi, Kim.
Andy, how are you?
I'm good. So, Kim's son is in his early 20s and just graduated with his doctorate in veterinary medicine. So, she has a son on the older end of the spectrum. And so, I'm going to bring in my dear friend, Robin Watson. She has two children, a girl and a boy, and her son is now 16.
Yes.
At driving age.
Yes.
So, hi, Robin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then my other dear friend, Candace Wynn. She also
Hey.
has two children, a girl and a boy. And her son is going to the first grade this year.
Mm-hmm.
First grade, first grade. So I had these conversations with my friends that have various ages of kids. And so we want to talk today about what are you thinking with everything that's going on? So we know this situation with George Floyd is not new. But every time it happens, it stings even more. And so there's so many incidences that have happened that we don't even hear about.
Right.
But this one is making a movement. So I just want to hear, what are your thoughts during all of this?
Well, I'll chime in. I think I got mixed emotions about it just because George Floyd really could have been any of our sons, any of our brothers, any of our husbands. Because he was a large Black man who they called a gentle giant, right? And so having a son who's 16, but he's all of 6'3", so he's always been bigger for his age. And the stereotypes that always go with that, of our men being a little imposing and threatening, just, in their natural everyday look, it just kind of cut to the core, and really made me even more aware of having the conversations again, like, being careful when you're going out, when you're driving, turning the music down and obeying the laws and being respectful and trying to make yourself seem less assuming or, trying, it's hard to kind of describe, but try not to be so imposing just with your size, if that makes sense.
How do you make yourself small?
Right, but still be prideful in who you are,
right?
But not seem so threatening, I guess. So, but for me, it was heartbroken. I was heartbroken to watch it, or just to go through all this. But I'm excited about the movement coming from an HBCU and seeing the young people get energized and really making a difference. And the fact that it's still going is just exciting to me.
I'll to Candy, as you mentioned, my son is 27. So even with him being, what most would call a grown man, I still have those feelings for him of fear. That, regardless of all the conversations that we have, like as of today, he's actually driving cross country from Atlanta to Vegas. And I have a pit in my stomach that says, I need to check in, like as a mother, because you know that no matter what you've done to lay that foundation, and you know that no matter how respectful and how kind and compassionate that they are, that people are not going to like them because of the color of their skin. And it's obvious, it's blatant, and it's hurtful, and it's very saddening as a mother to know that the person that you would go to the end of the earth for is in danger.
Exactly.
And watching that TikTok was just, it was very emotional. Conversations we have to have with our kids, other households never even thought of having. Like doesn't have to come to their mind, to say, keep your hands where they can be seen. Ask, can you pull out your license and registration? Those things are just things other parents aren't having conversations about that we have to have as mothers of Black sons for our brothers, our fathers, uncles, all Black men. So it's very saddening and I must say, very fearful to know that when a child leaves the house that you have to think about all those things and do they remember them?
Yeah. Exactly. Candace, you said something very interesting to me when I asked you the other day about how you were feeling with your son Mason. And you don't remember what you said, do you?
I was hoping you was going to like throw me like a bone or something. Well, if I don't say it now, then just let me know and I'll say it again. But I remember when I first, so Mason is young, so I'm on the newer side of even though I feel like it's been like 40 years already with this kid, it's only been 6 years, so I'm on the newer side of parenting. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to sit with mothers like Robin and Kim, who are a little bit farther along, to just learn from you all too. But when I first found out that I was pregnant with Mason, I did cry. And I cried because I was afraid of what that meant of me having a Black boy in America. And I did not know just all the things just flooding my mind around that time. Because of course you're pregnant, you're hormonal, but then just thinking about just like his future. And I think one of the benefits of having a child that's so young right now also is I know where he is at all times and who he's with. And unlike, Kim and Robin, you all might be, towards the other side of that a little bit. Robin, you might not be. You're probably like, little boy, I'm gonna know where you. Yeah. But so I mean, and he's typically always. I mean, like, yeah, he's always with an adult, who has the ability to stand with him and vouch for him. But one of the things with him is we've always kept Mason's hair more of just natural. Haven't really, cut it to a whole lot. And I believe in letting our children embrace their individuality and who they are, right? And we decided, Mason said he wanted to lock his hair, and I was like, okay. And I went back and forth in my head a lot about that because of the image that people will see when they look at him. He's a brilliant young man, very, very kind, very sensitive, but he's full of personality, and he's a little Black boy with locks. And I found a picture on my iPad when he was like this, right? With no shirt on, right? And I'm like, if something happens to this boy, they're going to pull up this picture first of the little boy in locks, no shirt on, like this. And this is going to be what they think that he's, throwing up gang signs at 6 years old. He don't know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And it's so when it comes to feeling right now, I think honestly, I'm numbing a whole lot. Yeah. I think I am.
Yeah, and I remember asking you if you guys had joined in any of the protests or anything. And your response was that you weren't ready to.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say? You said you weren't ready not to expose him, but to rob him of his innocence because the world was going to do that.
Yeah. He's, I got a text message from a friend of mine telling me about some kind of kid-friendly protest that was happening. I guess they tried to emphasize peaceful, right? Whole different conversation. And it was a white friend of mine, and I politely told her, I'm like, thank you, but my family is not joining this because my child is 6. And, I might regret this decision in 6 months, in a year, in 5 or 10. But right now we haven't exposed him to anything that's happening in the world. He knows about race. We've had plenty of conversations about race since he was about 3 years old, and he went down this Martin Luther King rabbit hole. So we, introduced him since then about, just the idea of race. But when it comes to just the threat of being a Black person in America, I'm not ready to expose him to neither one of my children to that. Because I want my children, when children become aware of that, there is it has potential to do something to your self-esteem, your self-image, your self-worth, and like Robin said already, you want to be confident in who you are, but at 6 years old, and if you begin learning that young that you are potentially a threat just because of how God created you to be, what does that do to you? Like, I mean, I want my children's biggest problems right now to be wondering whether or not they're going to get ice cream when they ask. You know what I mean? And I'm blessed to allow that to be the case. But I realize every day, we were looking at last comment, we were looking at some Time magazine. It was a picture of a guy at a protest being pulled by police and pulled by people. And he was sitting on my lap as we were looking at this picture. And he's like, "What's happening here?" And I was like, "I don't know, dude." And he's trying to read the captions, and I'm trying to keep him from reading the captions and trying to turn. He said, "Well, tell me 3 things you think might be happening." And I'm like, next page, So it's hard to keep them away from it, but it's a decision that we've made because we feel like it's one that's best for them amid a pandemic, and they're already experiencing a lot amid that.
Right. And then plus at that age, you have taught them if you're ever in trouble to find a trusted adult to help you.
That's
and
right. Exactly.
Like that a police officer would be that trusted adult. And, all police officers are not bad. So, that would really be sending mixed messages at that age. I totally
Yeah.
That is so true. I'm a little behind on comments, but Sean, who is a Black male, says racism has no age difference. And those of you know that not only do you worry about your sons, but you worry about your brothers and your husbands, and your male friends, and even us as women. I remember getting pulled over one night, and I was actually talking to Candace on the phone, and my front light was out. So I knew that's why they were pulling me over. I wasn't speeding or anything. And she was like, "No, no, no, I'm staying on the phone." And it was after Sandra Bland situation. And I was like, "Okay, Can." I wasn't even thinking. I wasn't thinking, but that was so true. And I'm so glad she was on the phone. It was a completely wonderful and pleasant officer. But she stayed on the phone with me. And that's the reality of our lives. Those are the things that we have to think about. So, Ken, go ahead, Robin.
I was going to say, I had watched a TikTok video with my son. And after we watched it, we talked about, because, he's 16, he's driving. I was like, so if you get pulled over, what's the first thing you do? He said, put my hands on the steering wheel. And I was like, no, the first thing you do is call your mom and dad, put us on speakerphone so we can hear and know where you are. So we can hear all things that are going on. He's like, well, yeah, I meant that. But it was just a good refresher as to know we've got to know,
Yeah.
Just scary.
Yeah, and you guys just segue, both of you, right into the next question is, what are you telling your son? And Kim, with your son driving across country right now, what is your advice?
That one.
Exactly. We all have a pit in our stomach.
Yeah.
What do you tell Cameron?
Yeah. So I have to be careful because, he's at the age where I don't want him to think that I'm babying him. And he knows that. He knows with current world situation where I am, and that in order to make mom okay, that I need to check in. But the thing that worries me the most is that he's the kid that, even though he will be very respectful, sometimes silence to some people is viewed in a different light.
Yeah.
It can be arrogant. It can be, something that comes off as if, he doesn't care or he's not being respectful, because he's the type of kid or young man that will sit there and listen, maybe ask questions when all I want him to do is just to be quiet, And so I had to, kind of go down the list this morning and just say, hey, I know you already know these things, just be careful on the road, be careful of what's going, Mom, I got it. I know what to do, please know that, I will be fine, because I think he knows that I'm probably not going to sleep until he gets to Vegas. I'm going to be sitting on edge. So I tell him all the things that I always tell him, and I pray with him, and I pray for him, and I tell him to be smart in what he say, in the decisions that he makes, and just other safety things about if you get uh, sleepy, or just to go ahead and stop. And so I weave in all those other things, but I always remind him that life is not fair. And so even though, he may do all the right things, um, the outcome sometimes will, say different. So
Yeah.
I, you know, it's one of those situations. So
Yeah. I'm going to jump to some of the comments real quick, and then we'll come back. Um, Jamil, thank you for tuning in. Um, Jamel, I'm sorry. She is, let me see. I want to read her comments. I went through those feelings of anger when I had to explain all of the comments on race, not policy, when President Obama ran for office. And at the time, I had a 3, a 8, and an 11-year-old. So Jamel has 2 sons. Um, and she said it felt so unfair that I was having to contextualize. My screen is moving. Jesus. It felt so unfair that I had to contextualize President Obama's candidacy based on race. But our household was shaken by the murder of Trayvon Martin when my oldest son was 15. We all struggled.
mhm.
Um, and it's like every generation has a moment where they're reminded of how we were brought into this country, how we were treated, and how we continue to be treated.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like, and until our Caucasian brothers and sisters, those moms, talk to their kids and help them to understand we are human just like them,
Mhm.
the world is not going to change.
Mm.
It's no longer just, Uncle Joe who's the racist, or my granddaddy had the Confederate flag. It's no longer that. It's young people that are at rallies fighting or saying racist things right now, today. They're young people that do things that I don't even know that they realize are
Mm.
racist to our children, to us. But because they were raised in this generation, or were raised thinking that way, for some reason, we are looked at as second class citizens. We're looked at as second to none. And so,
Mhm.
what is it that we should why is it important that we encourage our white moms to have this same conversation? So earlier, what I was thinking, I don't know that I ever said this because every time I watch that video, I get so emotional. But what I was going to say is that, when your children are young, you think about, I've heard parents, because I'm not a mother, but I've heard parents talk about they're dreading the sex talk. Well, as Black people, as Black moms, you not only have to have the sex talk, you have to have the racism talk. So everything that little boy said, you have to have that conversation with your child, that you cannot do the same thing that Becky does. You cannot do the same thing
Mm.
that Josh does. And so in having that conversation, how important is it that our white sisters have the same conversation with their children to help them understand what our children have to deal with?
So, I think it's extremely important. My son, again, he's 16, but we live in a multicultural type neighborhood, and he's played soccer. He's played soccer his whole life, which is traditionally not a Black sport. So he has friends of all different ethnic backgrounds. And the conversation that we have to constantly have with him is like, you can't do everything that they do. I remember when he was like 9 or 10 and they had those airsoft guns. I don't know if you guys remember, that was real popular for a while.
Mm.
And they would go through the neighborhood and, play, had these airsoft wars, but everybody in our neighborhood knew all the kids. So for a minute there, we're like, okay, that's fine. But then the whole Trayvon Martin thing happened. And it was like, nope, that's a wrap. And we had to explain to him that because you're 6 inches taller than everybody else, because somebody may mistake that as a real gun, even though it's an airsoft gun, you can't do what the other kids down the street are doing.
Mhm.
The part about our white counterparts having that conversation with their kids is important because they can help not put our kids in those situations. You do not want to say you can't hang out with Josh or John down the street because they're friends. They've been friends since they were 5.
Yeah.
But helping not to put our kids in that type of situation where there's even a conversation as to is there something going on, like how the guy said we can't even pretend like there's an altercation going on because we can't, do not help not to have our kids in those compromising positions where they could get into trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Candice, you wrote an article not too long ago for your job about the
Yeah.
importance of kids seeing multicultural relationships happening in front of them while
Oh,
they're
okay.
being raised. So I know that all of you guys, Kim, I met your friends. Robin, I met your neighbors. We all have friends of different races. So how do we still have to have this conversation with them to say, it's really important. And I don't know about you guys, but a few of my white friends have called to say, what can I do?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I know you still have to answer the question, but it just really made me think about that was a really good article that you wrote.
So and I think for me, I mean, I think it's a couple of things that it's very important for white parents to have these conversations with their kids, and it's not something that only Black parents need to do, or parents of color need to do, because if we really want, like you all said, we really want a new wave in the world, then the most impactful, the people who are positioned the best to create some sort of mental shift change within our world are parents and those who work with children and youth, because they're the ones who are planting seeds within them to teach them different ways of navigating and being in the world, and different lenses through which to filter their thoughts and their actions, right? And I think that if parents teach their kids to be advocates and to be anti-racist, then I think it just begins laying that new generation who in the world who just does something different, because we can have all kind of policies and laws in place that create a different way of being, but if that mental shift doesn't happen within the home and within all of the people in the world, then in several years we'll probably back in the same position, because there are people who have these racist ways of thinking will become people in power. I think that
I'm sorry, not only the way they're thinking though, but in the actions of the family.
Right. That's right.
The actions of the other races are anti-racist, and they will teach by showing their children that this is how, all people are actually created equal. This is how you are supposed to stick up for your brothers and sisters to make sure that the playing is equal. So not only through their words, but through their actions.
Right. And through the community that's around these parents, like, I mean, what do your friends look like? Are your friends, is your friendship group diverse? Do your kids see you inviting people over to your house that look like you and that don't look like you, having conversations, laughing with them, having a good time, and I think it's important for not just for in order for I'll just stop there because I could go on a whole rant, but I'll stop there.
One thing I will add too is to also make sure that they aren't silent when things are happening, because your silence means that you accept that.
Yeah.
And so I think them stepping up to say, hey, that's not okay. Because if they're not doing that, then they're perpetuating the issue and it's continuing. And people think that they're okay with racism that goes on even in their family.
That is so true.
And then also, like all that's happening in the world right now, I mean, most people are seeing it, right? And if there's a white mother or a white father who all this is happening and they know their kid is seeing it and they're not addressing it to their child, they're not even, hey, let's have a talk about this. Like you said, Kim, what is that message does it give to the children about it's like living in a pandemic and not mentioning it to your kids at all.
Right.
Like if you don't say anything to your kids about walking out the house, washing your hands, sanitizers and masks right now, I'm sorry, but you need to do something different, right? And the same is true for those. You're not mentioning anything to your kids right now. You need to do something different. Unless you're like me and you're deciding, intentionally not to.
Well, I was gonna say maybe of age,
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
age.
So one thing I was gonna say, and I forgot the guy's name. There is a football player who has a talk. I think it's on YouTube. It's like on social media. I'm gonna have to pass it to you so you can post it. But he has a show about uncomfortable conversations with white people. Did you see that? So he's
Yes.
on with Matthew McConaughey. I think he's had 2 episodes. I'm not sure who else he had on there, but it was really interesting. I think that's an extremely great thing to share. But it was just an example of having uncomfortable conversations with people of other races where you're just really kind of being honest and laying it out on the line. And I think it's a great starting point. We all need to start having some more honest conversations.
Right.
Yeah, that is so important. And sharing our experiences. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that Circuit was founded on. My intentions with the Circuit is to storytell, to continue sharing stories. And I feel like that's how we grow. But never did I think that it was going to have to be this type of story. And I think
Yeah.
that was the hard part of doing this show is because the story is hard. It's hard to process. That we still live in a world that we have to have these kind of conversations. Kimberly Springer said, in retrospect, let me put it on the screen for y'all. In retrospect, I feel I may have diminished some of my son's childhood experiences by always reminding him of the dangers racism presents. I encourage mothers of beautiful Black sons to create settings and experiences where true Black boy joy can be expressed. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there is so much joy in having a Black boy.
I know. I was just sitting here thinking that Black boy joy. I mean, it is like it's like robbing the innocence from them, no matter what the age is, right? It's like you think about their future and you think about all the potential, and then it's joyful to think about, but then it's also sad to think about what they could experience because you want to shield them from so much, but you can't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we don't leave out our little girls, but what we're seeing and what we know.
Yeah.
I think back to Emmett Till. He was 14 years old.
Yeah.
14 years old.
Yep.
And we circle back, many years later, it was still facing these
But
types
Candy, to your point, we have to have some of these same conversations with our girls. My daughter is 20, and away at school, and her freshman year at Chapel Hill, they were having racist marches trying to get their statues taken down. It's we're having to have the same with our girls now.
Yeah. And I think we always have to.
Yeah.
My parents commented a little earlier about a situation that happened to me when I was in Kentucky for work. And so as a female, I was appalled that I got pulled over because I'm thinking, I'm not a drug dealer and I don't look like a drug dealer. I'm not a gangbanger. Why are they pulling me over? But I literally got pulled over because I was looking for this church and it was in the hood. As my niece says, what's the hood? It was in an inner city area and I was lost. And this was pre navigation system. I had MapQuest printed out on my
Oh.
yeah. I had MapQuest printed out and I was still lost. And I literally got pulled over because I was driving a brand new car that hadn't even hit the showroom yet. And they told me that you're driving a really nice car in a not so good neighborhood. They checked all of my credentials. I showed them my license as well as my work ID because I was driving this new car. And he didn't apologize, but he did say, you might want to be careful in this neighborhood. And I said, well, why did you pull me over? And he said, because you're driving this car in this neighborhood.
Wow.
Now, can you tell me how to get to church?
Wow.
Can you tell me?
I know that's right. Tell me
So
how to get to where I'm trying to go.
right, but it was scary. I was already scared because I'm lost in the area that I wasn't familiar with, and
Yeah.
then a female in the car by herself, and then you get pulled over, and it was two cars. It was two cars,
Mm.
and it was a female that got out of the other car. So I'm straight pulled over like a dude. So, you're right. These conversations have to happen with our girls and our boys. And we have to continue reminding people to have these conversations with their children, just like you have the sex talk. And we know some parents don't have the sex talk.
Mhm.
Some parents aren't having the racism talk.
That's right.
And so I employ my white sisters to have the conversations with your children, help them understand um, the history behind it, and help them to understand why we have to protest, why we have to operate like we're operating. I'm trying to
Mm.
read comments at the same time that I'm talking, and I forgot I'm really not that smart. So that that didn't work. So we're gonna take a couple more comments before we sign off. We always go over time. Um,
Can I comment on one? Someone asked,
Go ahead.
um, Tia asked, so at what age do you begin to discuss it? She's a son who's 6'2". And I just guess wanted to chime in on that. I don't know. I mean, and I think there is coming a day very soon when it will be unavoidable for me to have that conversation, and I do think it is very, very soon. I just don't know, I mean, and I think this is one of those things when it comes to like a lot of parenting, we don't really know, a lot of it. We're just winging it and, using our best judgment. But I hope that we will be the ones who introduce those ideas to him and share with him. And he doesn't necessarily have to hear about it first from at school or from somebody else or from something happening that completely just throws him off, but you can't protect your kid from everything. So I know it's not really an answer to you, but I don't know. Maybe somebody else is a little bit smarter on me. I'll hear them making.
Well, I think also too, it depends on the type of child that you have, because some kids may comprehend or are a little bit more mature at certain ages than other kids are. So, I think too, with your child when they're ready and when they're capable of taking that in and processing it the right way, right? So.
Yeah. And I think my sister's on here. She raised a good point. You do introduce a conversation, in increments. You don't may necessarily have everything up front. So maybe we are doing it right. We've had a conversation about race, and maybe that's good enough for right now. And maybe the next. I can't say that when we do have a conversation, we're going to go full on and share every detail about everything. No, I'm not going to do that. But there's levels to it, and there's stages to it. Yeah, because even when we were reading books about Martin Luther King, I would say things. I mean, it was some words like when this language, but it was something like, they were discriminated because of the color of their skin, or something like that. And I changed it to they didn't treat them nicely because they look different. I just didn't want to even begin doing that yet. That was a little bit earlier, but we've had conversations of race. So I guess it's levels to it, and it's yeah.
Tawanda mentioned a book, Tia, that you may want to check out, and Candace, you may want to check out.
Mm-hmm.
She says there's a list of books that can help you in your conversations with your kids. We need a list of books to help us as adults.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to a comment really quickly because I know we have to jump off. You guys have to get back to work. Denise says, are there some things that need to just stay with us, between us? I nearly friend recently on a call about race, many whites on the line, and a sister said, well, she had been discriminated against, not by a white person, but by a black person. Well, if you don't have nothing nice to say, you just say, I'm with you, Denise. Some things need to just stay between us. It need to be talked about, but I don't think it needs to be talked about amongst guests. What do y'all think?
I agree. Immediately, like being Bobby Brown came to mind because I feel like that was a show that you needed to just have a. Oh yeah, I should have been able to watch that show. But that conversation, I don't know who brought it back, who brought it up, but they said basically that black on black crime is more of an issue than racism is. And I don't remember who
Yeah.
said it, but I believe black on black crime is still an issue, but that's not something we discuss in mixed company. That's something we need to work on within ourselves. But racism is something that affects all of us, and it's going to take all of us to help fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Any other
believe
parting words? We're going to check back on the comments. Thank you all so much for commenting. I hope you're sharing this conversation. But ladies, any other parting words?
No, just that I love the circuit. So
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah.
Thank
I think
you.
it's really a great platform, just like you said, Candy, to storytell, to, share experiences, have those conversations that are hard to have. I mean, we can do hard things, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Every day.
I appreciate you guys and your support over the years that we've done the circuit, and especially these past few months of having the virtual conversations. Candace and Robin have been with me since the beginning. Candace was on boots on the ground, helping me when
Hmm.
we first started the circuit with face-to-face events. So I appreciate that. And Kim has
Hmm.
been my social media coach and business coach through the process. And then my friend Cherie is backstage today. She's often on with me, but she is working the conversation, the comments, and everything backstage. So thank you all for joining in. You're right. This conversation is necessary and many other conversations. I want to invite you all back. Right now, we're scheduled to be back on next Friday, and we're going to have a conversation with a beautiful young white lady who is going to talk to us about white privilege. So I applaud her for her guts to come on and tell the truth, talk about what some people don't see, you know, this invisible, visible thing.
Mhm.
That was pretty good.
Mm.
That was good.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back.
We-
Thank you all for tuning in. Tanisha, Wanda, Kia, Denise, Krista, Shanti, Sean, my mom and dad. Did I say Jamal? Connie, Tia. I'm missing somebody. Carla, if I didn't say thank you personally, Kimberly Springer. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate the love. Again, please share, like our page at the circuit.live at the circuitlive.com on Facebook, and follow us for more opportunities to hear virtual conversations. Make it a God day and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye.